Open Minds Media.
Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs. They're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found his skull. I think you guys are going to want to come film this.
Put him out. Put him out. Put him out. Put him out. Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that they call Shane Squatch sometimes.
You're getting unhinged already, and I'm the big bad Boo Daddy Orin Felix.
Bro, we had a couple weeks off. I had to put all of the energy from the last 3 episodes into one intro. That was what I was trying to do there.
Okay, well, pace yourself. We still got the whole episode to go.
I was trying to give the listeners their fix, man.
Okay.
So I guess to kind of give you guys a bit of an update, so you guys don't think we outright disappeared or we're having troubles behind scenes, anything like that. We've just had a little bit of stuff going on the past couple weeks, nothing serious or anything. We were trying to double up on recording one week, but I ended up having my power go out for 2 days. And then the following week was Small Town Monster Fest. And then the following week after that was 4th of July weekend. And Orin, you guys said you had something going on with your family or something like that?
Yeah, so we were just kind of on summer break here the past, month or so. But we're back now. And so Shane, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Small Town Monsters?
So, guys, it was a really fun event. I don't know if there's any of our actual listeners out there, but we definitely met some new people. Got to hang out with, of course, some old friends and everything like that. I mean, I spent a lot of the time at the table, talking to all the people that came up, taking in some really, really interesting stories, one of which I will share, of course. But, Orin, I'll let you kind of give them the rundown on the event itself, since you got a little bit more of a chance to wander around, see everything, and communicate with people, whatever you want to call it.
Well, once I was back amongst the living and out of the bed and not super duper hungover.
Oh, that was the first part of the story I forgot. The night before, you texted me. And you were like, all right, man, I will be down there at 7 o'clock and I will help you set up.
Let me start. So, in typical Orin and Jenny fashion, if y'all follow us on social media, you probably saw this shit show. But so, it was like an 8-hour drive to Ohio for us. So we're like, cool. You'll hit Point Pleasant on the way up there. We'll see the Mothman, rub the shiny hiney, do all that good stuff.
Not only did you touch the shiny hiney, you had a little bit more fun with that shiny hiney. You gotta let the listeners know about that one.
Yeah, I gave him a little lick. But anyway, so we left here.
Rimming the Mothman.
Thursday morning. Went to Point Pleasant, did all that fun stuff. Spent the night in Point Pleasant on Thursday night. Friday morning, we got up and we drove into Cleveland, which was like an hour past Canton where the event was. But anyway, there was a Margaritaville there that we wanted to hit up, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there as well.
Did you guys waste away there?
That was the beginning of the end, yeah. So, we roll into Margaritaville 11:30 in the morning, start drinking. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they've got, beer everywhere in there.
Hey, man,
at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You should have listened to the signs at Margaritaville. It said it's 5 o'clock somewhere, not it's 11 o'clock somewhere.
we took it to heart. But anyway, so
they just have clocks that just say it's, and then whatever time it is somewhere. So you can just start going at any time.
Yeah, it's very open for interpretation. But anyway, so we roll back to Canton to the hotel and check in. And at that point, everybody else is rolling in. And so I think we stayed out in the lobby just hanging out with people and drinking and having a good time till it was probably like 1 a.m. when I went up to the room, and Jenny stayed out even later than I did, hanging out with Justin from Cryptids of the Corn. So anyway, now I'll pass it off to you to tell your side of the story.
Yeah, so you texted me and you're like, I'm going to come and help you set up at 7 a.m. I'm like, all right, perfect. I'll give you a call when I get there.
No, let me interject right here, too. So when you called me the day before, we were sitting at Margaritaville, and I was like, yeah, man, that'll be great. I'll come meet you. I'll help you set everything up. Just, I'll be up. Just give me a call when you get there, yada, yada, yada. So
I called you like 5 times.
Voice, that did not happen.
I called you like 5 times, and then I gave up, and I started texting Jenny. And then Jenny shows up behind me. She's like, hi, Orin's hungover. He's not going to be down for a while. I'm like, well, the good news is I already got the table set up, so we're good there.
So, yeah, it was just character building. You were independent, and you did it without me, and you don't need no man. So
I'm a strong, independent man. I don't need no man.
Yeah. So.
And then later on that night, after the awesome event, of course, getting to meet some awesome people, finally made contact with a few bigger guests that I'd like to entertain coming on this show and stuff like that. So hopefully there'll be some really cool guests coming on in the future, of course. But later on that night, of course, we had to go out and do our little gallivanting fun bit. So I guess I'll kind of let you steer off after we go to this fantastic hot dog place that's like it's like a board game, and they have all these like weird ass hot dogs and stuff. So I got like I don't even remember what I got. I got like a Mexican street corn hot dog or something like that, and a couple other things. They had some awesome beer, of course. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly. They had some awesome beers and stuff like that. And then we're about to go back to the hotel, and I was going to meet up with an old friend. Actually, the very first guest I ever had on Increase of Our Reality, who now lives down in Ohio. And you guys ended up going off on your own side venture, and I guess I'll let you... before we get too far in, of course, we got to give a big shout out to Kevin, because Kevin was with us through all of this stuff. Kevin for Where the Weird Ones Are. If you don't listen to that show, definitely go and check it out. But I'll let you tell your part, and then we'll hop back into the part together.
Yeah, so we were leaving the hot dog place. We're just going to go ahead and head back, and we'll catch up with you in a few minutes. So while we were walking back from the hot dog place to the hotel, this girl comes running behind us. And apparently she like worked at the hotel and had seen us at the event. And she also worked at like this bar, like golf simulator place down the street. And she was like, if you guys want to come and hang out, I'll give you an hour for, and she started at like, it's going to be $50 a person. And we're like, man, that'll be $200. We're not doing that.
Hell no.
She kept like knocking the price down, and finally we got it down to like $50 for all 4 of us for an hour. And Kevin was like, let's do it, we're going. So we hung out there for an hour or so, and we're really shitty at golf, we found out. It took us an hour, and we didn't even get through 2 holes. And that's not a euphemism or anything, that's actually just literally what happened. But yeah, so then we eventually made our way back to the hotel, and now I'll pass it back off to you.
Then we got into the rest of the adventure for the night, which was basically all of us just sitting around a table outside, having a couple beers with actually another past guest on the show, Michael, if anybody remembers him from the Wizard Clip episode, actually. Got to sit.
Great episode, great interview, super cool guy.
Definitely got to have him back on again at some point, because we had a lot of fun hanging out and talking with him and stuff. And then, we were just hanging out, drinking all that fun stuff. And then there's this whole thing behind. It was super hot in the building the whole day. Everybody was just sweating their ass off. So we go outside, it starts cooling down, and we have another friend that pops up ranting about the fucking fire pits outside, yelling about, oh, weird. The one place where nobody's sitting is where the fire pits are. You spend all day trying to cool the fuck down, and you walk outside, and you know what you want to do? You want to sit near a hot-ass fire pit. You're getting heated about this shit. But yeah, that was, what's his full name? Because I want to make sure we give him a proper shout-out.
Jake Dressel.
Jake Dressel, that's it. Yep. So another person we'll probably have to have on the show again at some point.
Yeah, he's a Bigfoot researcher. He's from Ohio. He's real good friends with the Cryptids of the Corn guys. We actually met him at Encounter Quest back in April. He was down there helping out Jay with the like Bigfoot casting seminar thing they did. So yeah, super cool guy. Really knowledgeable. He's got a lot of cool stories, and his wife's a sweetheart as well. So we had a good time hanging out with them too.
Yeah, after everybody else left, it was basically Orin, Jenny, me, him, and I didn't even catch the other girl's name we were sitting with. And we're all out there until like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Asher's from on Wednesdays We Talk Weird. That's another good podcast you guys should check out. She's a super cool girl. She does a lot of good like Mothman research. If you guys listen to this show, you're probably already familiar with it, but yeah, we had a great time.
And then I guess one little wrap up that we can do for as far as Small Town Monster Fest goes. I don't know if you collected any interesting stories, but I at least got one that kind of stuck out to me. But did you have anybody really share any encounters or anything with you there?
Not really. The craziest thing that I heard was just me being hungover in the bed. So.
Well, I got this one random encounter story that I found fascinating. It was this older gentleman. I asked him if, he listened to podcasts and stuff, just doing the normal convention stuff. And this guy's like, not really. He's like, I don't really believe in any of this stuff until, I had this really weird experience this one time. He was like, man, I was out fishing on this lake and I saw what looked like a big hairy guy on the side of the river. Or the lake, whatever he was on. So he's like, I started going over in that direction. And then he's like, next thing I know, I'm driving my car down the street and I have my boat on my trailer. He's like, I don't remember anything that happened in between, but somehow I lost 3 hours. He was like, man, have you ever heard of people having time loss for Sasquatch encounters? And I was like, man, I don't think you had a Sasquatch encounter if you lost 3 hours. Like, you remember going up to this spot where you saw this weird thing, and the next thing you know, you're driving down the street with your boat loaded up? Like, how? How does that happen? Like, what? But yeah, that one stuck out to me.
He was in the right place. I mean, there was probably all sorts of people there that would give their opinions about that story.
I mean, this guy, though, he was one of those people that seemed like he was very, very, level-headed, Like, he doesn't seem like he's somebody that would go around just telling off-the-wall stories. Like, this guy seemed legitimately concerned about it and very, level-headed. So, it was just a really weird, random thing to hear from some guy. And he was, basically saying that he never told anybody about this until he talked to a couple people at Small Town Monster Fest that day. So, super interesting story as far as I'm concerned. But
well, a lot of times it seems like those are kind of the funnest stories, the ones where the people really don't have that much of a frame of reference for what happened. Because, if something like that happened to you or I, we'd be, oh yeah, we had missing time. We knew it, but
it's the aliens.
Like somebody like that doesn't really run in those circles and have those frame of references. It's really cool to hear somebody say, these hallmarks of all these weird stories that we talk about all the time.
Which is actually perfect. We had a lot of fun at Small Town Monster Fest. Looking forward to the next event. We will talk about that in a few moments, but kind of a good segue into, I guess I'm going to kind of do this out of order, but it was a perfect spot to stick it. If anybody has any encounters that they would like to report, you guys can report those to ommencounterreports@outlook.com. And we would love to be able to dive into them, possibly read them on the show. Or again, if you just want somebody to talk about this stuff with, but you don't want it to be told to anybody else, that's totally fine too. We're always here for that. But none of that will happen, of course, unless you guys report those encounters to ommencounterreports@outlook.com or go to the link tree and fill out the submission form. And going into the next, again, out of order, I apologize, guys, but news and updates. So our next event will be Squonkapalooza 2, which will be in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, same as it was last year. It's going to be happening August 10th, and it's going to be going on from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m., and it's actually free for everybody. It's at the Central Park in Johnstown, so if anybody's interested in coming out, or you guys live somewhat close, completely free event. It's going to be a lot of fun. Actually, we were both originally going to speak there. Orin had some things shuffle around with work and stuff, so he's not going to be able to make it out. But I will be there. I will be speaking. So if you guys want to come and hear me speak, I will be there. And of course, I will be doing a presentation on cryptids of Pennsylvania. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And just to throw an additional little shout out in here, everybody knows we've talked about him a few times on here. Star Cruiser Studios, Jeff from Star Cruiser Studios. Orin actually was working on the North Carolina map with him, right?
Yeah, I think he's going to get started on that one whenever he gets done with whatever state map he's working on now. I talked to him a little bit about it at Small Town Monster Fest, so it sounds like it's a go. That's still in the book or cooking up, whatever. But anyway, we'll keep you guys posted on that. Should be pretty cool whenever that comes around.
But yes, he is letting me use his Pennsylvania map for the presentation. So really cool. I like being able to connect and give shout outs to awesome people in the community. So if anybody hasn't checked out his artwork, can't say it enough. Don't forget to go and check out Star Cruiser Studios. And I guess hopping into the out of order front of house, Orin, I'll let you hop back in and get this thing back on track.
All right, so we'll try to breeze through this since we went a little long with our news and updates there.
We had fun. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, we had to let you guys know about our summer break. So, Bizarre Inquiries, the Patreon most of the time exclusive mini show. Remember to submit questions for that. We're going to get back in the swing of that pretty soon, too. So.
And it will probably be a lot up on YouTube, at least, to get it rolling again, because I like doing the exclusive episodes and stuff, but when we take these breaks, I kind of feel bad, so I want to throw you guys back something. So at least the first few coming back, those are probably most most likely be on YouTube also. And if anybody wants to support the show, you guys can do so through the OMM Patreon. Over there, you get this show, you'll get Inquiries of All Reality, and any of our other little side venture shows that we decide to do. It's been about a month or two since I've updated the tiers, so there is 4 tiers to choose from. There is 7-day free trials for, I think, at least 2 or 3 of those tiers, so definitely go and check it out. And the second way you guys can support the show is through the OMM merch store. I actually dropped a new design over there relatively recently. It's the alien or demon design. You decide. It's pretty cool. It's kind of like one of those images where you look at it one way and it looks like an alien. You look at it another way and it kind of looks like a demon. And I actually have some new ones that I'm working on. I have a couple of them up on my program that I'm working on designing it and laying it out. One of them is going to be a Dogman design, so really excited about that one. And then there's going to be 2 new Sasquatch designs. I got a Shadow Person design I'm working on. I got an Alien design I'm working on, and I got a Reptilian design I'm working on. So there's going to be a lot of new stuff over there in the merch store, so make sure you guys keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you guys want to scoop anything in the process, still got Cryptid 10 activated for if anybody wants to use it. Receive 10% off your order, of course. And the third way and best way, preferably, that you guys can support the show is through leaving a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. And if you guys leave a 5-star review, of course, we'll read it on the show and give you guys a massive shout out. And actually, speaking of that, we actually do have a review from our good buddy Kevin. So I figure, take the chance to read it on the show. So he says, "Love it. Love this show. The banter is hilarious, and I personally don't care how long you guys spend on it. I miss Jenny on the show, but I absolutely love the big bad boo daddy known as Orin Felix. He's become like a brother to me. This show, I think you're supposed to say, is definitely one of my favorites. I listen to it every week. Keep it up, guys. You're both doing amazing jobs."
And a big thank you to Kevin for giving us that review. He's friend of the show. I would say beyond friend of the show. He's family of the show. Definitely check out Where the Weird Ones Are if you guys haven't listened to his show. He, has some awesome guests on there. He just had Ron Moorhead recently. So, yeah, definitely check that out.
Little side note I wanted to throw in here. Those future guests that I was talking about, that might be one of them.
You're just teasing everyone. But anyway, the normal social media stuff, you guys follow Bizarre Encounters and Open Minds Media on Instagram and Facebook and the Discord and the TikToks and the YouTubes and all that good stuff.
Just look up our show name on the internet, look up Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, and I'm sure you'll have a bunch of stuff that'll pop up. And you'll also partly have
internet things.
Some stuff that pop up from the other random podcasts that decided to start up and use the name Bizarre Encounters. But don't look for Bizarre Encounters podcast, look for Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, the OGs.
Anywho, all this shit is in the link tree in the show description. And Mr. Jones, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what we got going on tonight?
So tonight for you guys, actually, this was something we covered a very long time ago. Actually in the beginning of the show, but it was back with the old co-host for the show. So that being said, of course, Orin specifically has always kind of been the UFO/alien guy. So I really, really wanted to recover this topic again with Orin to get his opinions, thoughts, theories, and all that on this. And considering a lot of the other stuff we've touched, I think that there's a lot of connections just in the journey that we've done in the past year and a half or so on the show that'll make more connections with this. So if you guys heard it originally in the beginning, a lot of the information may be the same, but the episode itself is going to be different. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So without further ado, let's get into Sam, the Sandown Clown.
Let's do it.
The story of Sam, the Sandown Clown, takes place on the outskirts of Sandown, a seaside town on the southeastern end of the Isle of Wight. The town has a rich history stretching back to the Roman period when the area was used primarily for salt production. And up until the 19th century, Sandown was exclusively used as a military site since the beaches offer access to invading French troops. With the arrival of the train in the 1800s, Sandown grew into the beach resort town it became known as until the 20th and 21st centuries. Today, Sandown is a traditional British seaside town featuring a long stretch of sandy beach, a high street filled with restaurants and shops, various attractions including a wildlife sanctuary, and a dinosaur museum, of course, because you can't have a little tourist town without a dinosaur museum, since the area also is rich with dinosaur bones themselves, and a quintessential Victorian pier with a large arcade and beautiful views of the cliffs and the sea. So almost kind of sounds like a New England town, you know?
Yeah, like straight out of Jaws.
Yep. until something bad comes. That's all these little peaceful towns. Something bad's got to happen, and it just shakes the whole town, right?
Yeah.
Sandown is everything you'd expect from a seaside town. It's busy in the summer, quiet in the winter, plenty of tourists come and go, often returning for the beautiful beaches and stunning views. It certainly isn't the type of place one would expect to run into an alien robot clown thing. The witnesses of the following event were 2 children. A girl referred to as Faye, age 7.
Huh. That's pretty funny.
F-E-Y, though. A little bit different, but yes.
The point stands.
And a boy of similar age who wasn't given a name, so I'm going to call him Bob, who were vacationing with their families near Lake Common in Sandown. It was a Tuesday afternoon around 4 o'clock in May of 1973 when Faye and Bob heard a weird wailing sound similar to an ambulance siren. Curious, they followed the noise across the golf course and towards a swampy area outside of the Sandown airport until the noise suddenly stopped. The children ventured onward in an attempt to find the source of the strange sound. They eventually came across a wooden footbridge where they had their first encounter with Sam. They said, a blue-gloved hand appeared from under the bridge. Kind of sounds like Pennywise, but, a different color. But Pennywise feel all the same. And a strange figure emerged. The figure fumbled with a book, dropped it into the water, then splashed about to retrieve it. The two then watched the figure enter a metallic hut, similar to those used on building sites, except it had no windows. It moved along with a strange hopping motion with knees raised high. And that came from the Buffon Journal, Volume 6, Number 5, January/February 1978. And Faye and Bob stuck around the area and only wandered about 50 yards away from the bridge when the figure appeared once again. This time, he was carrying a black-knobbed microphone with a white flex attached. Immediately, the wailing sound returned, and Bob did the reasonable thing and started to run away. But the figure, perhaps realizing he'd frightened the boy, seized the screeching sound and spoke into the microphone. Faye, who had at this point followed Bob a decent distance away, claimed they could hear the figure talking as if he was standing directly behind them. They heard his voice say, as if directly in their ear, "Hello, are you still there?" I like how it looks like it's like a robot clown, and it's literally like the exact robot response to like when you stop responding in like a chat AI or something.
It's like Netflix, are you still watching?
Hello, are you still watching? No, I'm ruining somebody's daughter. Continuing to run away would have been the correct response, but Faye and Bob decided the voice sounded friendly and approached the figure so that they could converse properly. The closer they walked to the figure, the more confusing his appearance became. They stated he was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders. He wore a yellow...
Stop you right there for a second. What does that sound like that we've talked about extensively on the show and done a whole episode on?
Flatwoods Monster?
Well, I was going to say it sounds like Pascagoula, but Flatwoods and Pascagoula have a lot of similarities as well.
They ain't got no necks.
Yeah.
Just barrel. Well, this one's going to get weirder, like I said, because it'll start combining multiple things all into one place. Because it's like, you could go extraterrestrial, you could go Fae, but I want to see your theories on this, man.
Okay.
Let's see where it's at. He wore a yellow pointed hat, which interlocked with the red collar of a green tunic. A round black knob was fixated to the top of his hat, and a wooden antenna were attached to either side. The face had a triangular marking for eyes, a brown square of a nose, and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his face, or on his paper white cheeks, and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves and from below his white trousers. And again, that came from the Buffon Journal. Faye and Bob's conversation with the figure was strange. As they approached with hesitation, the figure pulled out a notebook and wrote in large letters, "Hello, and I am all colors Sam." Hello, and I am all colors Sam. You have to say it like a robot because otherwise it just feels kind of weird, right?
It really adds to the experience of it.
I got to do the voices. That's half the fun, right?
Yeah.
Hello, hello, and I am all colors Sam.
You sound like Yoda.
No, that would be all colors Sam I am. Hello?
And?
Faye read the confusing message out loud, and the two children continued to move closer. They realized then, after Sam initiated verbal conversation, that his lips did not move when he spoke, which made his voice difficult to understand. Sam asked the children questions, and they asked questions in return. They asked about his ripped clothing, and Sam replied that they were the only clothes he owned. On the unnatural whiteness of his skin, the children asked if Sam was really a man, which he replied, no. They asked if he was a ghost, and Sam replied, well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. The children asked, what are you then? And Sam replied with a vague, you know, without elaborating further. Apparently, Sam also stated that he had no name, despite introducing himself as Sam, and drew a sketch of what another like him would look like, implying that there were other Sams around. Sam confided that humans frightened him and that he was afraid of being attacked. But if he was, he said he wouldn't fight back. But I want to kind of get your input on at least that weird question, because this has been one of the weirdest parts that I've tore apart in this case, is the whole response of, are you a man? No. Are you a ghost? Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. And then the whole, what are you then? And he says, you know, like, what's your interpretation of that?
So, odd synchronicity. A fellow that you've had on inquiries before, I haven't had the pleasure of talking to yet, Paul Stobbs.
Ironic, because you just got the book.
Yeah. So for all you guys who can't see, the book just came in the mail today. The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns by Paul Stobbs. It's on Amazon right now. Check it out. Super cool guy.
We made a couple of references to him back in the DMT episode. If anybody kind of remembers us talking about that name a little bit on the show, you can go back and check out that episode.
Yeah, and like I said, you've had him on inquiries. Y'all should definitely check that episode out. But anyway, he's got this whole, just to super duper streamline it, this whole theory, and he's got like tons and tons and tons of research to back this up, that like the modern archetype of the clown is actually based off of like Nephilim figures from the Bible and folklore and whatnot.
Just kind of break down some of the details real quick for listeners that may not know.
Well,
the giant
like
feet.
The red hair thing, I thought that was kind of interesting that it mentions here, 7 feet tall. He's taller than a normal person. So that's, kind of Nephilim type stuff. Red hair, that's something that comes up with the Nephilim time and time again. This white skin motif, that comes up time and time again. And jumping back down to kind of your main question about when they ask, was he a ghost or a man, or what was he? Mr. Stobbs also has this kind of theory that like the Nephilim are disembodied spirits that can kind of possess people. So like the whole time I was reading that's all I kept thinking is, man, this like falls right in line with his ideas about like the whole Nephilim clown thing.
See, the only thing that throws me off is the fact that he's made out of wood. Like I can't like decipher that in my head, other than like, there's definitely the option that it was like a person in a suit, but there's too much weirdness as we go along with this that it doesn't feel like a person in a suit.
No, it certainly doesn't to me. The metallic hut thing I find to be an interesting kind of tidbit as well. Almost that's kind of more...
Kind of sounds like a UFO.
Yeah, kind of more flatwoodsy type stuff. And the whole wood thing, I almost wonder if that's just like a child's interpretation of whatever this thing looked like,
See, the other option that we think about is that the closest thing, like you were kind of saying, that it looks like to a kid is maybe wood, but it may not have been wood. It may have been some foreign material from another distant planet that we have no idea about. Or even another theory that I threw in is when you have these things that come to Earth, they seem to be wearing like suits. Maybe that has something to do with the atmosphere, the oxygen they breathe in, like whatever. Maybe it's just a protection thing, because he mentions the fact that he's scared of people, and if they tried to hurt him, that he wouldn't fight back. What if that wooden suit wasn't actually him, but rather, again, something he made for protection because it was what was available nearby? Like if he had a hut and it possibly was maybe a crashed UFO, for example, and he was just out in the elements, maybe he took what was available around him to at least make himself some type of defensive suit if he's, so to speak, scared of humans like he claims.
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. But, the only other thing I was going to add is, I'm going to go back to Flatwoods on this. They talked about how Braxy, they described it as like a pleated skirt type apparatus that it was wearing. So in the same, like, it obviously wasn't a pleated skirt that this thing was wearing. In the same way they described Braxy is wearing a pleated skirt, maybe these kids are saying, oh yeah, he had a wooden suit on. You know, like, this is, again, people trying to describe indescribable things with the best language they have. So yeah, I think it totally could be something that actually happened. You know, this was an actual wooden suit he was wearing or manufactured or whatever, or it could just be a language thing again.
And speaking of language, man, I gotta bring it back to the whole box thing. That this guy thing was trying to call to the kids, and it sounded like, they claim, like an ambulance siren. Just weird noise. So this guy grabs a box with a microphone and starts talking in English to them. So it must have been some type of translator. But here's the weird thing. UFO cases, you usually hear about the whole, like, they'll communicate telepathically. Like, people will just hear it in their language. Like, this is probably one of the only cases that I've heard of that there's, like, a physical tool involved for them to be able to communicate with people.
You know what it made me think of? And this is kind of getting back to Nephilim type stuff as well. Like, in all the carvings of, like, the Anunnaki and whatnot, like, they always carry those boxes. Like, that's what I thought of when I heard this. Like, man, this motherfucker's got an Anunnaki box.
Yeah, everybody's wondering what's in that bag or box. It's actually a microphone. They pull it out so they can communicate with all species. Dude, that would be a crazy thing to think about, though. If you just had this box that could communicate with anything, like, to the point where you could go up to, like, a group of ants and just talk into it in English, and it would, like, come over as, like, ant language or something. Like, if you were a species that traveled to thousands of other planets, and you have this whole idea in your head that not everything's brain may be complicated enough to be able to pick up these telepathic signals, you'd have to create something that you might be able to communicate with less intelligent beings. So it might make sense to have a tool, because the telepathy might not work for everything, you know?
Man, it's like the intergalactic version of, like, on 90 Day Fiancé, when these motherfuckers can't communicate with each other, so they have to use, like, their translator app on their cell phone. That's just what they're doing here.
See, we translators are clearly alien technology.
Yeah.
But dude, again,
Angel Nephilim technology. You heard it here first.
This shit just gets weird, man. Like, I've never heard a case like this one. This is why I would normally not bring back up a second case, but this is why I want your opinion on it, because how fucking weird is this?
Yeah, and I'll wait till you get a little further into the story to give some of my other thoughts, but I've got a whole nother angle that I think is really cool about this one too.
Okay, let's see. Let's hop back in, and then whenever you want to cut away, just let me know.
Okay.
Continuing the theme of prelude to a missing persons case, Faye and Bob accepted Sam's invitation to enter his windowless metal hut. Missing 411 much?
He might have had candy in there.
Maybe. I mean, he was a clown. I mean, it sounds like Pennywise. Like, come here, children, I have a box with candy. You don't know what I am. Well, you kind of do. Maybe you do if you've read Pennywise. But anyways, Faye and Bob accepted Sam's invitation to enter his windowless metal hut, accessed by crawling through a small flap. Upon entering, Sam removed his hat to reveal round, white ears and a sparse brown hair. The children described the interior of the shack as containing 2 levels, the ground floor being wallpapered in blue, green, and covered with a pattern of dials, an electric heater, and a wooden furnace they described as simple. And wooden furniture they described as simple. The first floor had less headroom than the ground floor with a metallic flooring. Sam hinted that he also had a camp on the mainland, but didn't say where, which also gets kind of weird. So, yeah, there's the mainland. The question is the mainland somewhere else, or is it somewhere on the planet? Because, okay, connecting some weird shit here, because I don't know why this just popped in my head, but I got to mention it before I get too far into this. So, have you heard those really, really weird old stories? I think most of them are like Japanese stories. Maybe like a myth, maybe something that kind of just translated to multiple languages and stuff. But essentially, there's the story about a bunch of Japanese sailors that found this UFO-shaped wooden floating vessel that they just kind of found floating in the middle of the water. And it had this like really strange girl in it that had like red hair, which again, there's another tie that I didn't even think of until I started mentioning it. And basically she had this box with her, and whenever they tried to touch the box, she like wouldn't let anybody touch the box or anything like that. And she didn't speak the language, so they had no idea what she was saying. And like I said, there's a million different variations of this, but it's still kind of, I don't know, just it kind of reminds me of this story. Like, we'll have to do an actual good solid episode on that at some point. Maybe I can put that together relatively soon since we're covering this, but just weird little connecting details. And maybe when we cover that one, we can connect some more details when I have a lot more of the intricate pieces to it. But I don't know if you've heard any of that one before.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with those stories. So yeah, that would be pretty cool to tie back into old Sam here.
See, because people have theories about it being an entity, about possibly being extraterrestrial, but it's all obviously up for interpretation because these are really old stories. But just again, the fact that it was like a wooden UFO-shaped vessel. So it's like, I know this guy's in a metallic hut, but just the wood relation or description
there's enough similarities there for sure.
Yeah. So hopping back in, when discussing his diet, Sam said he ate berries that he collected during the late afternoon, which again, he's actually eating physical stuff from this planet. So also kind of weird, shows it's some type of biological entity.
This is where I'm going to jump in if you don't mind.
Go for it.
We're talking about fucking berries again, man.
You already knew. And the little girl's name is Faye.
Yes. So that's what I was going to say. And you're going to say something later on that ties really back into this hardcore, but this story has a whole lot of like fairy overtones to me. Like,
is the mainland in Feyland?
Yeah. So, I mean, I like the whole like Nephilim extraterrestrial aspect of this, but if I'm going anywhere with this, I like the fairy connection personally.
See, that's where I started going with it when I read back over this again. And this is exactly why I wanted to recover it on the show. Because last time we were kind of like, hey, aliens. And now, again, with a lot more information over the past year and a half, it definitely seems more fayish.
Well, and again, we talk about this on the show a lot, like whatever fairy actually means, you know, like that's kind of a catch-all term. Could it be like, you know, nature spirits, elementals, things like that? And I think that all kind of gets into the whole Nephilim idea, if they are disembodied spirits, things like that. So maybe, you know, what we think of as the fairies is all tied into this somehow. Who knows?
Could be. Yeah, and I feel like we're just in general, a lot more people are diving into the fairy stuff. Like, I feel like there was a lot more of an understanding of fairy stuff in the past, but I feel like a lot of it wasn't written down. We've probably lost so much information on the fae/fairies as a whole, just because of oral tradition instead of actually it being written down for so long, too.
Well, and people probably just largely looked at it as folklore and not, you know, an important account that needed to be written down and remembered and categorized.
That is very true. That's what I said. It just, and then you get the fisherman's tales because people are telling it by word of mouth, and then it stretches, and then it's like you don't really know where the full root of it was either.
Yeah, for sure.
But the location of his scavengings wasn't disclosed. He also said that after cleaning, the water from the nearby river was safe to drink. Sam then demonstrated how he ate berries, which was strange to say the least. Before eating a berry, he performed an odd conjuring trick. He placed the berry in his ear, thrust his head forward, and caused the berry to disappear and reappear at one of his odd eye holes. Repeating the process, the berry traveled to his mouth. A possible explanation could be that he was wearing some sort of a protective mask, like I was mentioning, and analyzing the berry to check that it wasn't poisonous. So, again, like, very biological being because he needs to eat, but the mannerisms of which he eats, kind of strange, right?
Something just popped into my head. Like when I was reading the notes the first time, this didn't hit me, but just hearing you talk through it, it did. This is really similar to the John Keel Men in Black encounters in the Mothman prophecies as well. When, like, you know, they'll try to perform like normal human things, but they don't do it quite right. And it's like they don't know how a spoon works or an ink pen works or something like that. And then that gets back into the whole, like, what are these Men in Black entities conversation?
This thing's like, I am a human just like you. I eat food like you. Watch.
Well,
put in his ear.
Men in Black, you know, have this really robotic, sing-songy voice as well, kind of like Sam does.
See, this is what it was. It was a Men in Black, and he lost his suit because those were the only clothes he had. So he said, fuck it, I guess I have to be a clown today. A wooden clown.
We figured it out.
After 30 more minutes of conversation, Faye and Bob bid Sam farewell and retreated back across the golf course. They told the first man they saw that they had seen a ghost, but he wouldn't believe them. According to Buffon, the children were clearly convinced that they had encountered either a ghost or something dressed up in a particularly odd costume. Either way, they were very much under the impression that their experience was genuine, or so they claim. which, of course, I mean, kids make stuff up, but there's going to be some more connections, which also get kind of weird. But on June 2nd, 1973, 3 weeks after their conversation with Sam, Faye confided in her father about her strange encounter. He commented on the detailed description of his daughter's experience, which he was able to briefly verify with Bob, and how upset she was when he suggested that it wasn't entirely truthful. Faye's father thought an explanation of Sam could be make-believe or a shared hallucination, which I want to throw in the whole thing. They always say shared hallucination, but I don't think that's ever actually been proven to actually exist. It's more of like a scientific, psychological theory than it is psychological fact of a shared
like
group
owls,
hallucination.
just blame everything on shared hallucinations.
Yep, it was all just, all you guys got high at the same time, even though you did nothing. Must have been something in the air that day, you know? Or a person dressed up to scare children, which also, I don't think that's the case because this guy wasn't trying to scare the kids. If he was trying to scare the kids, he wouldn't have been like, no, it's okay, come back.
Well, okay, and let's just look at this objectively. Like, he had the hut, he had, furniture and shit in there. Like, if this was like a homeless man or whatever trying to scare kids, he didn't do anything to hurt them, So, I mean, it seems like a lot of work for somebody that was like basically trying to play a prank.
Man, all he was missing was some wine coolers, and he would have had a meet up with Chris Hansen.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to go quite that far, but we were all thinking it.
I mean, I had to make the joke. I mean, if somebody's not going to take it, I'm going to take the opportunity.
Hey, I threw you the alley-oop on that
one. However, he felt a particular detail Faye gave about Sam, having 3 fingers and toes on each hand and foot, was decidedly too difficult for someone to convincingly fake. There was also
jump in right there, too, if you don't mind. We've heard this 3-finger, 3-toe thing come up a lot in Sasquatch reports. There's a whole category of Bigfoot Sasquatch reports where these things have 3 toes, 3 fingers. So I thought that was kind of interesting too.
And I mean, there may not be a connection. There might be a connection, but it's just kind of a thing to think about. They usually describe Nephilim, going back into what you were mentioning, with 6 fingers, 6 toes. So split 6 in half, it's 3. I don't know if there's connection there. There might be, but I just want to throw that one out there regardless. So
yeah, definitely an interesting detail one way or the other.
But there was also the important detail that Faye's father had his own bizarre encounter that made him take his daughter's tale more seriously. And I guess before we get into Faye's father's part of this encounter, I'll let you, if there's anything you want to make mention on with Sam before we hop into the other part.
No, I think I'm good at the moment.
All right, so we'll hop into Faye's father's UFO saga. Best way to describe it. 3 years earlier, on Tuesday, October 20th, 1970, Faye's father was driving towards St. Helens on the Isle of Wight on his way from Shanklin to Ryde to visit a friend. To his right, Faye's father suddenly saw a large multi-lit aircraft flying low over the marshlands along the River Yar. He pulled over to observe the craft and noted that a wide ring of 7 or more lights could be seen, each of them a large and clearly defined sphere, like a bright red cherry, and interspersed with a turquoise and a white light. No sound could be heard. Faye's father resumed driving, and the object continued to fly parallel to him, eventually flying around 300 yards behind his car while rotating slowly. After stopping his car, Faye's father got out and started to signal at the craft with his torch. The aircraft continued to follow him, and when he reached this destination, his friends also witnessed the object, playing hide and seek behind tree tops. Upon leaving his friend's house, the aircraft was gone. Following the incident, Faye's father would occasionally see single balls of red light in the sky, which would hang stationary or follow him along as though checking his movements. 2 years later, on March 1st, 1972, between 9 and 10 p.m., Faye's father was sitting on the cliffside at Campton Bay, having been driven there by an unexpected tidal surge seemingly caused, in part at least, by some form of droning underwater craft. From his location on the cliffside, Faye's father spotted 2 yellow lights approximately 40 feet away, peering up at me like the eyes of some horrible sea monster, he claimed, not far below the surface of the water. After observing the phenomenon, the tide eventually went back out freeing Faye's father, who was able to get back in his car and drive home. So when his daughter Faye had her own strange encounter a year later with Sam, the Sandown Clown, he sympathized with his daughter's distress and considered how it would relate to his own experience. He said that he doubts his daughter was lying and told Bufon, "I get the impression that Faye was somehow taken into a bubble of alien reality caused by this strange personage." He told them he had just made the hut. Also, Faye told me that while they were talking to the ghost, 2 workmen nearby were repairing a post. They paid no attention to the weird charade, as though they could not see it. And I already know the gears are turning in your head. They're turning in my head. I'll just let you go for it.
Yeah, this was the thing I was waiting for you to circle back around to. This is the big fairyland, fairy tale vibe thing I get from this story. I mean, that's straight out of the fucking playbook. And, kind of piggybacking off of the fact that Faye's father had this odd experience. And we know that the phenomenon tends to follow, family lineages and whatnot. So,
even UFO stuff and Faye stuff.
Yeah,
They both kind of follow it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, even going into that, just like a weird thing to think about too, people talk about the whole idea behind aliens not necessarily being extraterrestrial, but rather like interdimensional, right? So miscategorizing things, I think we've probably said this on the show before, but could they all be the same thing coming from the same place? It's just a matter of how people perceive these things. Because you talk about small grays, you talk about the tall grays. And when you talk about the Fae, you have the little Fae, and then you have these bigger Fae. So it's like still kind of shares a lot of the same details. Like the description, visible details might be slightly different. But again, we've talked about this a bunch of times on the show, the whole idea of different beings possibly having the ability to alter people's perception based on what they need to do at the time. So you may not be able to alter your height necessarily, but maybe you can alter like your physical skin that's over the like a skin for a video game, like it still has the same character layout itself, but you just change the outside look of it, right? What if that's the case? What if these things, aliens, Fae, all that shit, they're all coming from the same place. They are the same thing. They just pick different skins, so to speak, when they're interacting with different groups of people, or even if there's some type of like rule, so to speak, that they can't interact with humans in their true form. So they just pick some like ridiculous form so that nothing gets tied back to them. You know what I mean? Like you hear about that in like sci-fi movies and stuff, that if you go to like, if they go to like planets that are less advanced than them, or if they go to like a different point in time and stuff like that, they can't interact because it'll like mess up the timeline. One perfect example, actually, I've been watching this show called The Orville, really, really good sci-fi show. It's kind of like a spoofy version of Star Trek for the first season. And then after that, it kind of goes off into its own thing. But there's
this Seth MacFarlane deal, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It's fantastic. Like the concepts in it, they're great. So there's this one episode where, there's this planet and it goes through this like time warp type thing where like they're sitting in the middle of space. All of a sudden this planet appears. It's there for, I think like 12 minutes and then it disappears again. And then it comes back after another 12 minutes or whatever. But the whole idea is that within that 12 minutes, it has like a century that'll pass. So like the time jumps forward significantly, right? So they're told that they can't interact with these people because they're basically still in like the medieval times when they first go there. So they end up on the planet. They see this little girl trip and get hurt. She has a big cut on her forehead. And the girl comes up and uses this device to be able to basically heal the girl, right? So the girl takes off. She doesn't think anything of it. They get off the planet. It reappears later on. They go back down. And the entire planet thinks that this woman now is a god because she came down, she healed them, and they formed an entire religion based off of this. And that's where the whole thing with like interaction goes. It's kind of like the same thing with like the butterfly effect when you get into like time travel and stuff. You could do something very small and minuscule that means nothing to you. You don't even think about it. And it can completely change the course of this entire civilization's progression through time. The same rule could be applied to extraterrestrial communication, all of this kind of stuff, where maybe they can pick certain people off and they kind of have to disguise themselves, but they can't interact directly as themselves without getting themselves into trouble with their galactic union, whatever the hell you want to call it, because just having little simple interactions, if the entire population picks up on it, could completely alter the course of that society's progression through time. Like, same kind of rules could apply, you know?
Well, just that scenario you laid out from the show, that shit happens in real life. Like that, we know that's documented, like the whole cargo cults thing, where like people will go to these tribes that have never had outside contact, and like people will bring in supplies and medical equipment and whatever on planes, and basically these tribes, like you said, formed these whole religions around this experience they had. And, there were like coconuts on their ears to mimic like the headphones from planes and whatnot. So like, if we can see that in the real world happening, if you multiply that by galactic proportions, yeah, I mean, that very easily could be what's going on here.
And even miscommunication with that, because I know the cargo cult in particular, it was like the U.S. Army was dropping supplies to these people, but they were looking at a plane and they thought that it was some type of like bird entity, and they're actually making statues of this thing because they had no idea of what a plane was, what a helicopter was, like what it was. So like the closest thing they could describe it to was a giant bird, and then again, they formed this whole religion off of thinking that this airplane was a giant bird. Like, think about how many things out of context that we've seen that we've formed things on that are clearly way the fuck off from what they actually are.
Well, again, to beat the drum, it's fucking language. I mean, it's kind of like whenever, skeptics, I'll just say, all right, well, it doesn't talk about dinosaurs in the Bible. It's like, well, because that word wasn't fucking invented. Like,
they did have Leviathan, though. So
yes, exactly. So,
and dragons.
These people calling this a bird or a dragon or whatever, that doesn't mean it wasn't some kind of craft.
It means that they were describing it with exactly what they knew at the time.
Yeah, describing indescribable things with the best language they had.
I mean, look at all of our cryptids. It's all this man, that man, this man, like dog man, fucking sheep man. Like, we take two animals and we put them together and we're like, yep, this is as close as it could be. And even just describing stuff that kind of gets blown out of proportion on stuff. Mothman. They originally described it more bat-like, but they couldn't call it Batman because there was already a Batman. So we started calling it Mothman. Yeah. So now everybody's idea when they think of Mothman is this moth-phased being, when the actual descriptions of it fit more of the description of almost like a Batman.
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. This is a great kind of, case study for a lot of things we talk about on the show all the time, like language and the game of telephone and all that. So, no, I'm glad we circled back around to this one. I've heard you mention this story on the show a lot, but it wasn't something I had really ever dug into. But there's a lot to unpack in this one, and this is a weird one. So I'll shut up and let you finish your notes. But yeah, this has been a good one so far.
We only got like 2 lines left, and then we can discuss some of the interconnections between it. But we have to take a quick second to give a shout out to all of the fantastic sponsors of the show. So without further ado, Orin, why don't you let them know a little bit about some of our sponsor friends?
Big shout out to our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch. Check them out for all your squatchy gear needs. Joe at Crypto Theology. He's always killing it with your wearable Whipped favorites.
I missed that.
Mr. Jones, take it away.
And Snarly Yow for a fantastic natural line of beard oil, beard balm, beard shampoo, and body wash, all with an enticing woodsy aroma of smoky cedar with a hint of mint. But that's not the only thing the Snarly Yow does. Orin, what else does he do?
He also puts on enticing events in the West Virginia area. Our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow, nicest guy ever. So if you're in the area, check out one of his events. We will be speaking and emceeing at Cryptid Halloween 3 this October.
And we'll, of course, give you guys more information on that as we get closer. But currently, we have to keep promoting Squonkapalooza because that's coming up real quick. And our newest sponsor of the show, I got to give a big shout out to him. And he will also be a guest on the show, I believe, within the next couple weeks. So you guys can hear a little bit about him and his own weird personal stories he's had on his property. But Big Ape Threads, don't forget to go and check that out for all of their Bigfoot and cryptid related designs. And moving into the affiliate links, and you guys can go and check out Oregon-ite, which specializes in scale model pyramid replicas, EMF protection devices, and much more. And if you guys use code OMM at checkout, you guys can receive 10% off.
And a big shout out to our buddy Barry with Dimension Devices. Check out our episode we did with him a couple months ago if you guys haven't. But he makes this super cool ghost hunting device called the Chattergeist. He was nice enough to share one with me and Shane. Super cool device. he's a super cool guy. All the, maintenance and updates and whatnot he does himself. So definitely check that out.
And if you guys want to get a Chattergeist for yourself, you guys can use our affiliate link to receive 10% off. And it is all in pounds, but it does convert over through PayPal. So just because you're not in the UK, don't think that you can't scoop one for yourself. And moving into the last affiliate link, if you guys are another podcast or you guys own a local business, anything like that, you might need to be able to print your logo onto stickers, envelopes, t-shirts, any of that really cool stuff, you guys can go and check out Sticker Mule. And if you guys use our affiliate link that will be down in the show description, you guys can receive a $10 credit towards anything you guys might want to pick up. I use it for all of my stuff. They have really, really good quality, so I highly recommend checking out Sticker Mule.
And now let's get back to the show.
When Faye's father visited the location of Sam's homestead, the creature's metal hut was nowhere to be found, likely confirming Faye's father's own suspicion that his daughter was taken into a bubble of alien reality, aka the Faye world possibly. Was there any connection between Sam and the UFO sightings made by Faye's father? He seems to suggest that there may have been. And that's about it for the notes. We've kind of done our own theories and everything on it. But, I mean, just some of the theories that I kind of went across on the internet is people said possibly a human wearing a costume, which is definitely viable.
I think we've kind of knocked that one off the list, I feel like, at this point, just in our discussion.
I mean, think about how heavy a wood suit would be, too. I mean, like, the guy was 7 foot, so I mean, like, he's probably a pretty big, burly guy if it was somebody in a suit. But if you made a whole suit out of wood, bro, that thing wouldn't move very well. It'd be super heavy. Like, that thing would not be very functional.
Well, and again, why? Like, this thing didn't try to scare the children. It didn't try to, fiddle the kids or anything. Like, why would someone go through all this trouble for basically no reason?
Dude, I don't even ask that question when it comes to people anymore. And my prime example for that is that one dude who spent, 40 years making metal penguin feet that he walked on a beach with and just, like, hoaxed a town for 40 years. It's like, why did you spend 40 years of your life every night wearing these big-ass heavy things on the beach just to walk around? Like, why? There's no reason why. People just do weird shit.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, man is the strangest cryptid sometimes, I guess.
You ain't wrong there, man. And also one of the scariest monsters on the planet. I gotta throw that one out there. Also, explanations like we were talking about. A fairy, ghost, or other type of paranormal / supernatural creature. Possibly a robot. Maybe. An extraterrestrial. A complete hoax. Or a shared hallucination, which... fuck that. I don't believe anything is a shared hallucination. So that's at least what the internet could bring us from this. But
my kind of thought theory idea, what I'm going with on this one is something more of the Fae realm. Whatever that means in real world terms. Is it an elemental, a force spirit, a Nephilim, whatever?
Could that explain the wood?
Fairy.
Could that explain the wood itself, though? Because... when you talk about the Fae, they're all like the ones that make nature function behind the scenes, so to speak. You talk about like gnomes, you talk about fairies. They're very forest / wood based. So like it being Fae would almost explain the wood suit more so than anything on top of it. Because why else would you make the thing out of wood unless that's your thing,
Yeah, and maybe kind of like you said at the top of the show, it's the material they had available to them that they could manipulate, so, and the thing that really ties it in and, kind of rams it home for me that I'm putting this in the fairy category is the whole thing about they saw the guys, working on the fence post or whatever, but they couldn't interact with them. They couldn't see what was going on. That one detail to me just like hits it home. Like I'm putting this in the fairy category.
I want to know if they actually had lapsed time and just didn't realize it. Because, like, if they're having this conversation, they're only gone for a half hour, they're kids, they're not really paying attention to time, day, like, stuff like that anyways. They're just kids out having fun, talking to whatever. So they may have thought they were only talking for a half hour. They could have been gone for 3 hours. But when they went home, their family was like, oh, the kids were just playing out for 3 hours. And there may have been a missing time / time-lapse things there, and just nobody actually... connected the pieces to realize
the other side of that coin is, they said they were talking to this thing for 30 minutes. Maybe they were only gone for a couple minutes. And that's why, the parents didn't worry where they were, Faye and Bobby are just out running around. They've only been gone for 5 minutes.
Although it was the 70s, the whole rule back then was like, you leave when the streetlights come on, and then you come back when the streetlights turn off.
As long as you ain't dead, you're fine.
Vice versa. You go out when they turn off, and then you come back when they turn back on.
So, yeah. But anyway, kind of wrapping things up, what is your kind of theory on Sam?
Honestly, I have to go with the same with you. I think it was some type of fey being. And just to throw a ridiculous theory in there, a bunch of gnomes made a wooden suit to be able to interact with people.
It was like 3 gnomes like wearing a trench coat type Scooby-Doo apparatus.
Exactly. That's why they were throwing the berries in there. There was one guy that was like, all right, snack for me. All right, snack for you.
Yeah, the tube was like running down to the bottom gnome that was like supporting the other two. There we go. That's the official theory.
It's like that game where you like drop the thing down and it has all the pegs and it's going to go to wherever. Yeah, it's going to go to wherever it's going to go. They had 3 straws and they were playing gnome who gets the berry. Oh.
Gnome Plinko.
So. Which one's the winner? Who knows?
All right, guys. So I think that's going to do it for this one. You know the drill. Contact us if you want to be a guest on the show. Hit us up, through social media, Instagrams where we're most active. Just get up with us somehow. If you want to be a guest, have us as a guest, collaborate on something. Just get up with us somehow.
And if anybody is interested in podcast and or audio production services, you guys can shoot me a message through Open Minds Media, which is available on our link tree and all of that, of course.
And all this shit is in the link tree in the show descriptions.
I have been the one that they call Shayn Squatch.
And I have been the big bad Boo Daddy Orin Felix.
I'm so glad that you're just living up to that now, because that's just the nickname, man.
Hard now.
You have no option now. Like that's what people know you as, man.
No, it's been declared.
And guys, just like us, we may have been gone for the past few weeks, but we, in that process of that, know that it's totally okay to always, always stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Sam was midgets on top of each other in a trench coat.